Everybody, it's Leeroy from Leeroy Gaming. It is Thursday, September the 9th, and that means it's time for another Outriders Dev News Thursday. In today's video, while we wait for the patch to finally drop, we have some very interesting news to talk about. We're going to be talking about the future, the present state, as well as the future of the Moaning Winds mod. We're also going to be finally looking at probably the most obvious hints of the future and future content to come. All this and more in this episode of the Dev News Thursday report. So let's go ahead and jump right in and take a look at everything in this new news update. All right, guys, so we're going to start kind of with the bad news. The latest patch is still stuck within the submission process. I'm assuming they mean that for the Xbox submission process. See, update could go live at any time. But while we wait for that element for this latest patch to come through, we have an opportunity basically to discuss here the future of the game. And we'll see them respond to some questions that have been floating out there over the last week or two. So let's jump right in and see what they are saying. So I want to jump to this third paragraph right off the bat. Okay. So they say, quite often we see players asking, what's the point? And why are you running Outriders in such a live service way? Also, usually in combination with a really spicy hot take along the lines of dead game. When each patch or change is viewed in isolation, it's somewhat understandable where these feelings come from. But here's where it gets interesting. However, everything we have been doing and will do in the future will contribute to its own way to creating the outright experience that you all have been asking for. So those things are highlighted. I'm pretty sure the majority of us are asking for an experience that includes more content, not just patches. All the patch and rebalancing work that we have been undertaking to date are part of a much bigger end goal, a much bigger plan and end goal. Again, I want to emphasize, much bigger plan and end goal. An end goal that does very much include Stadia as well. Okay, that was unnecessary. Everything we are currently doing and have done in the past is essentially layering the foundation of what is still to come for Outriders, while also letting you be part of this journey. This is also why it is so important for us to get these patches right, and also to bring the players, the meta, and overall state of the game into the best place it possibly can be before we introduce what is next. So if it wasn't already so obvious, they have plans for this game. It's not dead as far as content. It's not dead as far as support. Stuff are coming. It's big end game plans. Something big is being worked on. Obviously, they're keeping hush hush for now, but let's go ahead and get these patches done so we can hear about it, so the community can get excited again. So again, TLDR point here is that they want to balance things out. They want to put the meta in a good place so that the game is ready when they release whatever the new content is going to be. Now, let's talk about the big discussion they want to talk about today, which is Moaning Winds. And I really like what they're doing here to explain where this kind of mod came from, its progression from initial testing till now, and potentially the future of this mod. So, as part of today's news and to continue last week's discussion, we want to spend a bit of time going into the case of the Moaning Winds mod. So they want to say it's worth stating that primary balance in Outrider is towards a 3-player co-op experience. It means that mods should be the most balanced when playing in co-op, which makes sense. So like Moaning Winds, for example, does a lot of damage, as we'll see. It's super OP in single player, and multiplayer it's still quite good, but obviously not as broken. But for some mods, these behaviors and unique mechanics can lead them to being more or less powerful in single player. Yeah, like a lot of single damage mods are just absolute trash in 2 or 3 player uh, play sessions. Now, prior to launch, Moaning Winds was balanced to be a niche mod. Initially, it's at the time super low damage value, 97k at level 50. Yeah, that would have, if it was doing 97k AoE damage, nobody would be touching it, which is kind of ironic because a lot of the single target mods are doing about 97k. It's origin point player, meaning you don't shoot this out; it starts where you're at. And trigger reload were making this mod obsolete. Judgment was made based on many hours of playtesting and comparing throughout the different builds and skill levels, all in heavy tempo meta. So in the 3-player co-op session, there were very few enemies approaching a single player at once, let alone being in that player's direct area of influence, close distance to player. This made the mod quite niche, especially within a multiplayer session. Since changing the trigger on reload or origin point player was not an option, we chose to turn a bland, non-competing mod into a powerful niche tool that could serve one specific purpose: to clear trash mobs that attempt to overwhelm the player throughout sheer numbers. We achieved this through upping the damage and cooldown 4 times. Damage was increased to make the mod be able to serve the desired niche, while the cooldown change was made to safeguard the mod from abusive play patterns, such as turning the mod every 1 or 2 shots. Which is hilarious because, I mean, when you put 3 of these on your weapons, that's exactly what happens. So this solution held true for 3-player co-op. Especially Moaning Winds equipped could obliterate swarming melee enemies and chunk elites. This mod, when played proactively, achieved viability competing with other S-tier mods. And so this is telling us what they say the S-tier mods are. Like Legendary Minefield, okay, I can see that. Ultimate Bone Shrapnel, yes. Wrath of Moloch, definitely. Ravenous Locust, whoa. Hold your horses there. I don't know if anybody's checked. The damage on this is horrible, and it's a long dot. I would disagree that this is meta, especially since it's not on a great weapon, unfortunately. Now, Sandstorm, I will agree, it's on a really good stat stick of a weapon that's really good for AP builds. The damage is a little higher. It doesn't have the little debuff that Ravenous Locust has, but it's 10 times more useful for damage purposes. So I would agree with all of these except for Ravenous Locust. This still, for its long cooldown, needs to do maybe 2 to 5 times more damage, honestly. I'm going to mention, and a few others. So, however, in environments where the health of enemies is greatly reduced, like single player, the damage Moaning Winds brought was overpowering. Not only trash enemies, but also elites were nearly or fully killed thanks to the mod, when used with a series of combat damage amplifiers buffing anomaly damage. However, its 8-second cooldown still prevented this mod from being entirely abusable. With this in mind, this single player MW experience wasn't considered a huge problem. MW. If a player invested time into farming, understanding the game, and how different stats and mods can be complemented in order to create an incredibly overpowered build, they could naturally create a Moaning Winds. MW, Moaning Winds, duh. A build that was viable in some but not all situations. However, what we did not account for was the dominance of single-player experience combined with the nature of cooldowns of resetting the mods. So I want to make a comment here. Considering all the issues they were having with multiplayer connectivity, on top of the fact all the bugs and the player loss, which made it a little tougher to group up with good groups. Let's not forget the poor Devastators, where earlier in the game there was so much hate towards them. People were insta-kicking them anytime I went to a group. So, of course, a lot of people gravitated to single players. So the problem of cooldown resetting being that the same mod on different weapons might not share a single global cooldown, making it possible for such mods to be triple spammed. Now, again, I want to add some commentary. If you have anything in this game that is potentially abusable, players will find a way to break it. Players are incredibly resourceful and smart. They will find everything eventually, and they are going to take advantage of it. If it provides a 5% increase, we're going to use it. It's just human nature. You've seen this in every single type of game like this and other games as well. So just my 2 cents on that. Let me know your thoughts. Do you agree or not? Now, cooldown resetting is something we looked at and addressed on a number of mods prior to launch, including status applying bullet mods, vulnerability freezing, etc. Before this, testers could otherwise proc the 8-second cooldown mod, swap to a new weapon, apply the same damage mod again. The net gain of such play was estimated as generally taking 5 seconds off a mod's effective cooldown. It's worth noting that we only became aware of the risk of that cooldown resetting presented a short while before launch. The time constraints here meant that we had to respond on a mod-by-mod level rather than overhauling the entire cooldown system. And let me also restate what they're really saying. This was not basically built to be a live service. That means as soon as this game went live, a bunch of the developers went on to something else, and they had a skeleton crew working on the patches. And then obviously they probably had to pull in some people when they had all the emergency issues. But they don't have a giant team working on this stuff, so this is why they got to work little piece by little piece. And again, that's just my opinion. They're not technically saying this, but that's my translation. Now, the cooldown resetting fix specifically for those status applying mods was implemented prior to release. However, the potential for abuse remained as a sleeper issue in a few other mods, the most prevalent of all being Moaning Winds. And that's where we've arrived today. Where do we go from here? So it'd be good to remind ourselves a few things. We do not plan to address the issue of Moaning Winds or Fortress before we have resolved the challenges that drove creation of this meta and continue to require its viability. So my translation to this means, okay, the reason this is part of the meta is that there are no other viable options. We need more sets that are viable. We need more mods that are viable, meaning more mods that apply and damage anomaly power modifications like Fortress. Other options for AoE or single target damage that actually works. And to give you feedback on last week's, we tested all the other mods and their buffs, and they still don't feel nearly close enough, any of the buffs from last week, to make any of the mods viable on an S tier meta level. So Moaning Winds' core issue is not the base damage of the mod itself, so we want to avoid fixing an issue that is not present on the playstyles that do not involve quick cycling or shuffling weapons. Now, we have always had the option of simple number nerfing in this case, but we have not done so. And I implore them not to do this. There's so many people that rely on Moaning Winds spam right now to enjoy the game. They may not have all the builds, all the gear for a specific build they really, really want, but this helps them clear content. You take that away, that's like basically taking out their legs from underneath them, and people are not only going to have huge post spike, people trying to create videos and get clicks, stating game getting destroyed even more when it hasn't been fixed yet, etc., etc. But it's really gonna just the people that have been dedicated to the game, they're just gonna be driven away from it. So I hope they don't do that. We are most interested in giving players a choice of using the greatest possible amount of different mods in combination of one another, which in turn will lead to much more compelling gameplay loops. For example, we feel it would be healthier for players to be able to have 6 mods on 3 weapons rather than 2 mods on all 3 weapons. Well, obviously, but let me provide my commentary here. These mods would have to work synergistically together in order to create some kind of greater benefit. Otherwise, it will never beat being able to synergistically apply the Moaning Wind mods, where their synergy is in the fact that you can take advantage of their cooldown basically being reduced by 66 to 75% relatively by cycling it 3 times in theory. This was a likely overly long deep dive into the history of Moaning Winds, how we are approaching the present. Having spent some time observing the participation in community chat following last week's topic for discussion, it's great to see number of players are already thinking in the same direction that we are too, with regards to how the issue could be resolved. I will probably do a similar deep dive on Fortress in the coming weeks if you're interested. I think we are. I mean, give us something. You know, we need some stuff to that tells us that you're still alive on the end and working on stuff. As part of which, I will hopefully also be able to share the exact steps we're planning to take to resolve the Fortress dilemma in the future. So that's all the news, guys. The patch news is all the same as last week. I'm not going to waste your time going over this. If you want to know everything that is coming this patch that is still stuck in certification, apparently, do check out my video from last week. That'll give you all those details. With that being said, guys, again, remember, if you enjoy this content and my support of Outriders, make sure to like, subscribe, smash that notification bell, and make sure to join me on Twitch if you're enjoying the game and you want to have some fun, you want to interact with me, you want to get some free CT15 runs. If you're brand new to the game, just joining us and want some help with carries, come aboard. It's at twitch.tv/Leeroy Gaming Stream. And you can check my schedule of when I stream, which is 4 days a week, including Tuesdays and Thursdays, right after this video normally goes live around 10 a.m. Pacific. So make sure to join me. As always, guys, I'll see you guys in the next video.